Good evening and welcome everybody to Wednesday Night Live from Courtroom Confidential, the fastest growing true crime news channel on YouTube. Thank you all so much for being here. I see a lot of this familiar faces in the chat already. Nikki and Kathy and Allie and Joy W. Can. Thank you guys so much for being here. A lot of new faces I see, new names. So thank you so much if you're joining us for the first time. Let me introduce myself. My name is Joshua Ritter. I'm a former prosecutor with the LA District Attorney's Office. I was there for over a decade. I left and went into private practice as a criminal defense attorney, and this is Courtroom Confidential, where we try our best to present to you both sides of the courtroom. And you're joining us for Wednesday Night Live, where we it's our midweek check-in on all things true crime, and you showed up for a very good episode because we have a special guest tonight. That is Joel Waldman from Surviving the Survivor. Not only is he a brilliant guy, a good friend, a mentor of sorts of mine, but he's also been in court every single day for the Donna Adelson trial and has been following this trial from for years now. So I'm really curious to hear his thoughts on how things went today. But we're also going to run a poll because Joel is going to have to leave us a little bit early because I guess Court TV wants to speak to him as well, and they figure they're kind of important. So with the time that we have remaining, we can either talk about Rex Heuermann, who had a hearing regarding the DNA, big decision made today. Barry Morphew, who had his bail conditions adjusted. We can talk about that. Or the Tyler McCann case that has a very interesting motion by the prosecution to have the defense attorney removed from the case. Those will be in our poll. Rex Heuermann, Barry Morphew, Tyler McCann. Vote on those while we're talking to Joel, and we will try to get to as many of those as we can with the time that we have left. Of course, stay to the end. We do have some exciting announcements for you. And please, before I begin, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and share this with somebody you think might enjoy it. But I'm not going to talk any further because I'm going to bring on my friend Joel. How you doing, buddy? How are you holding up? What is your energy level right now?
Joshua, I feel like I just left the Mandarin Oriental Spa, to which I've never been in my life, but I feel fantastic. 3 weeks on the road. I feel refreshed. I feel like I don't need an ounce of sleep, and I'm ready to go. I'm ready to run a marathon. I'm barely holding up. I feel like I'm about to literally start convulsing and collapse, but I will try not to do it on your show. And Court TV suddenly calls, and so does News Nation, because this is a big story. But as you said, yeah, we've been following this story, and not only following it, but I've become very close with the family as well. So this is what I describe as advocacy journalism, where we're really kind of, I know you do an amazing job balancing everything out, and typically I try to do that, but in this particular case, I am very convinced of the Adelson's guilt, which we'll get into, and I've had the unique opportunity to spend the last bunch of nights with Dan Markel's father, his mother, and his sister, and some extended members of the family. And it's super tense because we're in the middle of a murder trial, and you just don't, this better than anyone. You don't know which way it's going to turn out.
No.
So, but it's pretty one-sided so far.
It is really hard to describe for people, even when you're watching it on TV. There's something about being in the courtroom. There is tension like you've never experienced before. There is drama like you've never experienced before. And the waiting, like you said, not knowing, are jurors getting this? Are they being convinced? Are they understanding what's taking place? Have we lost any of them? Waiting for a verdict. I will tell you, I don't care how many times I've done it and how long, and I've done it dozens and dozens and dozens of times, sat in court waiting for verdicts. Every single time, sweaty palms, nervousness. You just never know how these things are going to turn out. And it's just, it really cannot be replicated even by watching it. And I invite everyone, if you ever have the opportunity, go to court, watch a trial, even if it's not a big, huge trial, just go and watch the environment as it takes place. And what a day too, today, because I want to get your reactions. I wasn't able to watch much of today because I was busy with other things. So tell us, how was Donna Adelson's testimony? How did that go down?
Well, I'm glad you asked because it didn't go down. It was supposed to go down.
What?
Yeah. It was supposed to go down, but it didn't go down. And man, I mean, Josh, in terms of like underscoring something that you just said today, and I've covered. I mean, I've not been close to as many a part of trials as you have, and like intimately been a part of them. But I've watched a fair share of trials, and I've been at a bunch of trials. But I was at Charlie's trial and this trial most recently. And today, of all days, and this started 3 weeks ago, this is day 11 of testimony. And I was here for the first day of jury selection. But you could cut the tension with a knife today. I mean, it was tense and intense. And it's because we got to the point in the defense's case in chief where they had to let the judge know if Donna was going to testify. And for whatever reason, and I know what for whatever reason's a big one, it's the fact that the prosecutor on the opposite side of the aisle is prosecutor of the year, Georgia Kappelman. And just before her right there, that's Georgia. Her dad was the quarterback of the Florida State University football team. So she comes from a very competitive. I met her mother. Her mother's beautiful. Told me she's a fan of Surviving the Survivor. But her father was literally the quarterback for FSU, and her godmother was a professional golfer. So she comes from a family of athletes, and she is so competitive. And she literally just, as my daughters would say, slayed, but literally they use it in different contexts. The witness before Donna was supposed to testify, she just eviscerated her on cross. And I think that really got the defense attorneys worried. So we get to this moment in the trial where we're at the end of the witness list and everyone says Donna's going to testify. And suddenly Josh Zellman and Jackie Fulford, they're the defense team. That's the two of them. They're a whole other story. But they started hemming and hawing and they asked for 5 minutes. And Judge Stephen Everett is like a no nonsense judge who has, he's such a,
love him.
Yeah, such a great judge. And I see him at the deli. I saw him at the deli today. He goes out and gets lunch with the common folk like me, but such a cool dude. And he's got such a like gift with the way he speaks and controls the courtroom. But when these defense attorneys started hemming and hawing, you could see the steam coming out of his ears. And he's like, we've had motions hearings on this. I've given you rulings on this. And they like meekly ask, can we have 5 more minutes? I don't know what they were discussing. So they asked for 5 minutes and then they somehow delayed it again and asked for another 5 minutes. And finally they were huddled in the corner and Judge Everett at one point, and man, was this nerve-wracking. He says to them, if you don't get in front of me now and start speaking, you're going to be held in contempt of court. And then when I heard that, they got their asses in gear. And basically Donna spoke to the judge. And again, there's a difference between watching on TV and being in person, because it's so like tactile, 3-dimensional in person. And you can look at the jurors, you can look at the defense, you can look at Donna's husband, you can look at the people in the gallery. And I was looking around, everyone's like, what is going on? And Donna started to speak, which was hard to hear. But she said to him, in so many words, I'm going to decline to testify. So the defense rested. And now, as far as we know, we're getting jury instructions in the morning and closing arguments. No Charlie Adelson, no Donna Adelson. They decided not to testify. And having watched Georgia and Sarah Dugan, who's her counterpart and probably just as good as Georgia, Donna may have done herself a favor, but there's some fear that she's going to come in tomorrow on a good night's sleep and say, well, I want to testify, in which case the judge will probably have his hands tied and she would have to testify, but she will get absolutely annihilated by George on cross. So she either loses by not testifying or gets destroyed, in my opinion, by testifying. So it was really dramatic today.
I agree with you. It was dramatic. And it's funny because this judge, as much as I love him, he is not the most emotive judge in the entire world. He kind of keeps it even keel. And when you say he had steam coming out of his ears, that's because one eyebrow was raised more than it usually is. Like he's pretty stoic, but you could tell he was getting upset. And for him to threaten something like contempt, I know on TV we hear judges throwing around contempt all the time. It rarely ever is even mentioned by a judge. So for him to even talk about that, you could tell he was kind of at his wit's end. And it makes sense too, because this isn't like, oh, you made her rush to make a decision. This is, like he said, months of pretrial, all this run up to this. You've watched the entire trial play out. You've had time to have these conversations. Don't act like I'm surprising you with this question. I have some video of it I want to play so everybody sees what we're exactly talking about. And then I want to talk a little bit about like what your theories are, why they weren't decided at this late in the game. But earlier, so you're right. He had brought this up to them like, hey, by the way, where are we at on this? And Jackie Fulford said, the issue we're facing, Judge, is this was 6 days of testimony from witnesses for the state and a great deal of evidence that they have entered. We have discussed with our client, of course, her right to remain silent or whether she wants to testify or not. We have not had the opportunity to go through all the evidence and have a full and frank discussion with her about the evidence. Bull crap. Okay. Like you know what's being testified to. You've known about these witnesses. You've seen it all play out. These are not conversations that need to take place over days. So that to me was stalling and probably what got the judge going to begin with. But then he comes back later and has her stand up and speak to him because he's like, listen, this is happening. This truck is reaching the edge of the cliff here. And here's what he says to her.
At this point, I do need a decision. Mrs. Adelson, please rise. You've been placed under oath earlier this afternoon. Mrs. Adelson, I will advise you concerning your rights. You understand that you have the right to remain silent, and the jury will be instructed that your silence cannot be held against you in determining the merits of this case. Do you understand this?
I do understand.
Do you also understand that you have the right to testify as a witness in your case in chief on your own behalf?
Yes, Your Honor, I understand.
You understand if you do choose to take the witness stand, you will be cross-examined by one of the prosecutors.
Yes, I'm aware of this.
You understand that your credibility will be placed before the jury like any other witness.
Yes, Your Honor, I understand.
Have you been able to discuss with your attorneys the 2 rights that the court has placed before you?
Yes, we discussed the rights.
Concerning those rights as to whether you will remain silent or whether you will testify, have you made a decision concerning this matter?
I haven't. I'm not prepared to make that decision. This decision affects the rest of my life.
Mrs. Adelson, you're in the same position as every other criminal defendant who faces trial. Ultimately, you must decide whether you will testify or whether you will not. I cannot make you testify. Your attorneys cannot make you testify. But ultimately, you must choose whether you will testify or not.
I don't have to choose. I was hoping I would have some time to speak to my attorney.
This has already been discussed, ma'am. What is your choice?
Judge, since I was handling prior witnesses while Ms. Fulford was speaking with Ms. Adelson, can I have a few minutes, please?
What exactly are we going to accomplish that we have not been able to since the trial started, pre-trial, the long recess yesterday, or even the lunch break today?
That's what I'm trying to determine, Your Honor.
I will give you exactly 5 additional minutes. From there, Mrs. Adelson has to make a decision whether she will testify or whether she will not.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Zellman, Ms. Full.
Okay, so then they go on a break. He gives them their 5 minutes. He's being incredibly patient. I got to say here, not to defend the defense attorneys, but I guess as in defense for defense attorneys, they're probably as frustrated as anybody else. I am sure they've had conversations with her, and she's probably just not giving anyone an answer. And there she is standing in front of the judge, and it's like, it's one of those things where when you're dealing with a incredibly narcissistic and entitled person, and they realize they have the slightest bit of power, and that power might be in their indecision making. In other words, she knows the second she makes a decision, then a course has been set and she can't pull it back. So it's like she knows that the only power she has is in not making a decision almost. And it's like everybody just needs you to decide here, lady. So they come back 5 minutes later, and here's the rest of it. Just a few seconds more here.
For Mrs. Adelson, the extra time that you've been provided, that has come to a conclusion. We are not finished with the colloquy quite yet.
This is where he says it.
I am not talking for the sake of talking. Before we have to move into any contempt, we do need to move on. Mrs. Adelson, the question remains, as it relates to your right to remain silent and your right to testify. What is your decision concerning these two rights?
Even here, she
looks like a toddler.
Very well. As I've previously stated, the jurors will be instructed that your silence cannot be held against you in any way.
I love that judge so much. I have this like weird scenario play out in my head. I would love to see him like hand down a death sentence in like old Western times, where it's like you will have a noose hung around your neck, and you will be hung until it is that you die. Like, it's just even when he's furious, it's the same cadence.
He always says very well. He always says very well. Then I cannot underscore how tense it was inside that courtroom at that time. And so I watched that obviously in real time in the courtroom, but I couldn't hear it the way I haven't seen it played back like that. And man, I mean, if you're a defense attorney, you've got to be so thankful that you're not their defense attorneys, that he's saying that to them and not to you. Because, and by the way, Josh Zellman, pretty nice guy. The other defense attorney, the woman we can get into, really quirky. But Josh Zellman is, by all accounts, a pretty good guy. And I think you're right. I think he's kind of caught between a rock and a hard place with a super narcissistic client, and he just didn't even know what to do himself. But it was awkward. But if you looked at Donna there, it's almost like, I'm trying to think of an analogy, but I'm so brain dead. But it's like giving a toddler a decision between like, like getting an ice cream cone or doing the right thing, and like, I don't know, doing their homework. You can either do your homework or have an ice cream cone, and they know that like doing the homework is the right thing, but they kind of want the ice cream cone, and they sit there, they don't know what to choose. And she just looked lost. But as he said, this is a decision. She's a criminal defendant. She's not feeling badly. I said this earlier on my show. She's not feeling badly for herself there. I mean, for Dan Markel, she's feeling badly for herself that 100%. She's stuck in this position.
100%. Yeah. Tiffany and I, when talking about her, Donna Adelson, I have said that woman has sent back more meals in her life than I've ever ordered. Like, that is the type of like entitled, I get my way all the time whenever I want it. And now here she is, and she cannot get her way because it's testify or don't. This trial's coming to an end. And she wants the third option of, I want this to go on forever and I'm never convicted. And that's not an option here. And that's the decision she wants. The frustration I think she has is she's not getting her way for that last time. Well, let me do some thanks here. First of all, to Farm Girl, thank you so much for gifting the membership. Appreciate you. And Debbie Kennedy for becoming a YouTube member. Welcome aboard. Claire Z30, thank you so much for becoming a YouTube member. Paray, thank you so much for the super sticker. Appreciate that. Dulcie 808 for becoming a member. Wow, so grateful to have everybody joining up tonight. Dr. Von Decay says, grateful to both channels for covering the Markel case. Loyal supporter, OG to the story. Justice for Dan. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Von Decay, for that. Here's what I will say about Zellman and the position that he's in. I don't know the statistics on this, but I will tell you one of the number one complaints when a defendant goes down in a trial, and she's going down, I agree with you, is this decision right here, whether or not they testified. If they testify, they blame the attorney for having them testify. If they don't testify, they blame the attorney for not letting them tell their story. And so it's one of those things. And because it's not a strategic decision that the defense attorney has any control over, it's the one decision the defendant can make and will make themselves. There's this really weird kind of soft touch that you have to give to the whole thing. Because as much as I believe Zellman and Fulford don't want her to testify, because it's just like you said, Kappelman will have a field day with her, and they know that. They cannot lean on her too heavy, because if they're like, don't do it, you're going to mess this up, then the first thing out of her mouth, if she's convicted, is, why didn't you let me testify? Why didn't you let me tell my story? And that becomes a big issue on appeal and everything else. So it's like they got to kind of go, here's your options. Here's how it works. This is our thinking, but you got to make the decision, Donna.
Yeah. And Josh, let me ask you a question. So they, and I was reminded of this today. I sort of forgot myself, but either going back to openings, at some point, Zellman and Fulford, the defense attorneys, indicated to the jury that you're going to hear from my client. Now they're not hearing from the client. Yeah. How does that play with a jury? They're gonna have to be wondering. By the way, they're gonna have to be wondering, why didn't she tell us her story, right? And even though everyone knows about the Fifth Amendment right to not self-incriminate, you're pretty much, waving a flag of guilt, right? I mean,
well, especially when you bring it up as the defense, which is shocking that they ever do that. Usually they're very kind of coy. Hey, you might hear from some people, my defendant has a story to tell, blah, 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 blah. My client has a story to tell. But to say you're going to hear from the client and then not produce that is a problem. But here's the interesting thing about it. The prosecution cannot touch it, because there is it's called Griffin error. There's a huge problem if you ever even allude to the idea that the defendant didn't take the stand. That is seen as a violation of their Fifth Amendment rights, and that will immediately be grounds for a mistrial. Like, it's a big, big problem. There used to be this argument that the prosecutors would make this kind of cute argument that, hey, we're all sitting here. Well, there's one person who could have told us. That person, had they decided to take 12 steps to the witness stand, could have told us all about this, and they would kind of play around with it. And the courts have pretty emphatically decided that you can't do that. So they're not going to mention it at all, because they don't want to get anywhere near that. That was the big thing that happened today, but the jury's not going to hear that. The jury doesn't know any of this. All they know is they're going to get closing arguments tomorrow. They'll never hear from Donna. I think it was probably a smart strategic move on the part of the defense. But how was the rest of their case? Because they put on quite a defense. I mean, not I'm saying effective, but they called witnesses. Anything stand out to you over the last couple of days of who they called that you thought, actually, they made a valid point there?
Yeah. What stood out to me is how awful it was. I mean, just in every way imaginable. And listen, I get criticized constantly, and I teach my kids, you got to grow a thick skin. I thought it was bad when I was in TV news, but it's a billion times worse when you have a YouTube channel and a podcast. People, for some reason, like to criticize, and most people are critical because they're not the ones doing it. And so I said on my show today, Josh Zellman and Jackie Fulford, they've got a tough job. They've got very bad facts with a difficult client. So to sit there and point the finger is much easier said than done. To get up there and do what they're doing is tough. But with that said, I asked my panel tonight, I mean, like, there's not a single defense witness that we can think of, that I can think of, that helped their case. They had two divorce attorneys who basically got up on the stand today to say that the divorce wasn't a big deal when everyone knows it was. There was $80,000 at stake, and one of the lawyers said on the stand, well, $80,000, that's not a lot of money. That's not a big deal. To a jury in Tallahassee where $80,000 is probably like the median income, if not way above it, and they just were shooting themselves in the foot every which way that they turned. And yesterday was worse. They had friends trying to defend, friends of the character witnesses. And look, I'm a Jewish guy from New Jersey, and I don't want to stereotype, but these were, Jewish people from like Queens and New Jersey who, he's like, oh, I met Harvey Adelson because it was Christmas Eve, and everybody knows that, the only thing open on Christmas Eve are Jewish restaurants. And I went to bite into a spare rib and I chipped my tooth, and I ended up in Harvey Adelson's office on Christmas Eve. And like, he was the least sympathetic character, so obnoxious. He's talking about how much money he made in real estate because, he comes from the same circle as Harvey. So it was just like a comedy of errors with one catastrophic witness after the other. I mean, maybe there was an advocate from the Tallahassee Police Department today that was okay, but other than that, they just made you dislike Donna even more. And I'm a pretty good read of people. This is a jury of 8 men, 6 women, 2 alternates in there, and they just can't stand her. I mean, and I don't think they can stand the attorneys. And Jackie Fulford's a whole other story. She's kind of a Tom Petty doppelganger. She looks like Tom Petty for some reason. But, I mean, she was an hour and a half late to court the other day, and I found out through a source that's as good a source as you can get that she accidentally took a sleeping pill and had to walk it off in the morning. And then yesterday she's caught on camera appearing again to be sleeping, and she's getting paid, and she's just a very, very, very unusual personality. Like just everything about her delivery, her timing, the things that she says, she's just off, and it's just the whole experience is weird.
Wow. There was one, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. I felt like all of this entire case is circumstantial, right? I mean, it's heavy on the motive. It's saying she was greatly motivated to participate in this. We've got circumstantial evidence about the phone calls. I think that's all very powerful stuff. And listen, I'm not trying to criticize circumstantial evidence cases, but they've got the phone calls. They've got the bump. They've got a lot of suspicious behavior, a lot of consciousness of guilt stuff. But as far as like direct evidence, she told me she did this. None. One witness, however, or 2, the Jailhouse informants. To me, those were pivotal witnesses in the prosecution cases, because now we're for the first time hearing someone say, Donna told me she did this. Very powerful stuff. Now, they come with their own problems and baggage, unfortunately, because they are in jail. They do have, you could attack their motives and everything else. So to combat that, the defense calls this private investigator, Tarona Khan, who said that she interviewed Patricia Bird, and that nowhere was it ever discussed that Donna confessed to this crime, which would be a big portion of that. How did that come off? Because I thought actually that was probably the best rebuttal that the defense may have put on. How did that play out, though, in your view?
I mean, that's a great point, and she may have been one of the better defense witnesses. But the Jailhouse snitches, these informants, one's name is Patricia Bird, and then Drina Bernhard. That's Patricia Bird, and then Drina Bernhard. They're both kind of career criminals. That's Drina. And essentially what was going on is that they were in the jail the same time as both Katie Magbanawa, who's the convicted middlewoman in this, and then also when Donna was there, because they've been in and out so many times. And so they said that they had information related to the case from Katie Magbanawa. But what just destroys Donna, which is like the hubris on display, is they play I mean, this was another odd thing. This was the defense, Josh, playing video of Donna in the jail, in the pod in jail, which someone said to me, I don't care what they're talking about or what they're doing, but don't ever show your client in jail, because just that alone is prejudicial. And this is the defense playing like an hour worth of Donna in that jail. But basically, the gist of it is that Donna, what offered up, her and her husband offered Zelle payments, veneers, money, and all these other things in return for testifying for Donna favorably. But the problem is, Donna wrote an actual script. Like, she wrote a script, and they brought in a handwriting analyst, the prosecution did. And usually an analyst like that will say, well, it's like a 90% chance that it was Donna Adelson. This handwriting analyst said that is Donna Adelson's handwriting. Like, there was no question. But then the defense tried to spin it by saying, well, Donna was dictating what these people were saying. But look, these are Tallahassee has the smartest population in Florida, like in terms of education level, because it's the state capital. These are smart jurors. I can look at these jurors and tell you that they're intelligent people. They're not going to buy it. I mean, the bottom line here is Donna essentially tried to bribe these jailhouse snitches and was literally writing a script. And I think that in the end, they came across as pretty credible, and it's going to come back to bite her in the you-know-what. So I think that was a fatal. I mean, there's other fatal flaws, like trying to get away to Vietnam on a one-way ticket, but that script is going to literally it might be the end of her in terms of her conviction.
That's the kind of stuff that really hits home with jurors too, is anything that the defendant says, writes, words from their own mouth, I think is incredibly powerful, whether it's surreptitiously recorded, something they say to police in an interview, something they say on the stand, that just carries an extra amount of weight. So you got somebody saying, writing out a script, that's them doing something and saying something that shows their own, culpability in this whole thing, rather than a bunch of circumstantial evidence or other people pointing the finger at them. There's something about the defendant's actions themselves that are so powerful. I want to get you out of here in time so that you can go talk to Vinny, I guess it is. But let's take a few questions before you go. This is one that a few folks have asked, but Shannon Duffy says, can she come back tomorrow and say she wants to testify? I know that was kind of the scuttlebutt around the courtroom today.
Yeah, so this is a question that everyone on my show was asking, and the answer I got, and obviously Josh is an attorney and I'm not, so he'll be able to answer it as well. But just to preserve the record for a possible appeal, it's almost like Judge Everett would have his hands tied and would have to let her back in. Now the defense rested, but I think if Josh Zellman was to go, if Donna gets a good night's sleep and says, all right, I want to try this, my life is on the line, and Josh Zellman and Jackie Fulford appeal to the judge and say, look, she had a change of heart overnight, I'm pretty sure, Josh, that he would say to them, okay, let's bring her up on the stand and then we'll do the jury instructions after. But that could take a day and a half. Tim Jansen thinks that the direct exam of her would be about a day and the cross could be a half a day. So obviously that affects the timeline of the trial, but I think they could do it if they wanted to.
I think they absolutely could, and I think this judge would allow it. This is the same judge who, by the way, realized there was an issue with the conflict in attorneys with when we had Rashbaum, and he made the right decision. And that was an incredibly difficult decision because they were ready to start trial, but instead he said, nope, you're gone. We're getting new attorneys and we're pushing this down the road by 6 months. That kind of a judge who realizes doing the right thing, even when inconvenient, is the same type of judge that if she were to come back tomorrow and say, I want to testify, he'll reopen the case. He'll allow them to reopen. He'll put them on the stand because he wants to avoid any kind of trouble with this whole thing. I don't think she's going to do it. I think she's actually relieved that she made that decision. And now that it's been said and done, she can kind of walk away from it. But I mean, who knows? You're right. Maybe on a good night's sleep, maybe she gets all those carbs she's been eating in jail and she comes back full of energy. Here's an interesting question too. We talked a lot about her not testifying, but Charlie didn't testify. Jennifer says, Also, what about not hearing from Charlie? Do you think the jury is wondering where he was? Now, he was on the witness list, but I don't think they heard as much about the potential for him testifying. But do you think they might wonder, why didn't we hear from him? We heard from Wendy. We heard from Rob. Why not Charlie?
Well, I mean, the interesting thing is they know that he's a convicted killer because it came up in testimony that, you know, all these different players in the case, and Charlie is one of them who was convicted. So that came in. They didn't know or did not necessarily anticipate him, and they probably think, well, the guy's in prison, so he's not going to come out and testify. But you know, a lot of lawyers who I talked to thought that all along he would have been like a rebuttal witness to whatever Donna's testimony was. So Donna would have probably gotten up there and stuck to Charlie's story and would have said, I was just unaware. And then Charlie would have tried to get up there and say he wants to keep his story preserved because he's still up for an appeal. Although someone told me his appeal came back, and I've just been so mired in this trial, I'm not 100% sure. But anyway, he would have had to stick to his story and essentially say, look, I was double extorted, which is an insane defense anyway. And my mother, I kept her in the dark the whole time. And that's where the government would have probably called him to cross-examine him. And look, it was very dangerous for him in terms of his appeal possibilities. And then combine that with the fact that Donna would have gotten slaughtered on cross, and that basically, you know, got Donna to eliminate herself and Charlie to say, you know, there's no reason to bring him on now.
Yeah. The more you talk about it, I'm thinking too, in her decision not to testify, she saw Charlie. Charlie did about as good a job as could have been done in that situation. I mean, say what you will about him being a liar, he had answers, right? It wasn't like he was ever caught without an answer. It's just that's what happens even when you are well prepared. This was interesting because I heard the judge talk about this. He admonished someone, or the defense complained about reactions in court. Do you know who they were talking about or what that was all about, or is it just kind of general gasps from the audience?
I think that honestly, it was kind of a tactic. It was Josh Zellman. So when Donna, you know, they were having this whole debate, does Donna testify or not? And he kept asking for 5 minutes. I guess, you know, to stall one of the times, Josh got up there and said, you know, that we've been hearing over my right shoulder, we've been hearing noises and comments and oohs and ahs from the quote unquote peanut gallery. And so we don't want our client, Donna, to get up there and testify on her own behalf and have people doing this. I mean, the problem with that is there's, you know, there's a lot of sheriff's deputies in there who are trained. They're watching every single thing, and they're kicking people out the minute a phone goes off. I mean, I check my phone 5 million times a day in there just to make sure it's silenced. But any slight deviation from what the norm is supposed to be inside with the decorum in the courtroom, they're throwing you out of there. So I don't know if Zellman was like fussing about someone's like in particular that I'm not aware of, or if he was just kind of using that as a chip to either have the judge say, okay, well, I'll remove everybody from the court for this part of the proceedings, which he did not offer to do. Or if he was just, you know, going to say, oh, you know, what's going on with this and look into it further. But either way, it was no one specific that I knew of.
Gotcha. Last question I'm going to ask you, and then I'm going to get you out of here in time to take a quick breather. Grubba says, and I'm curious, that this is another reason why I invite everybody to go to court, because you can see the jury. Whereas when you're watching TV, it's like you're watching without one of the main characters on screen. It's the jury. How are they responding? Are they responding? Are they taking notes? How do they seem to be reacting to all of this? What has been your take on them?
So my take on the jury, again, it's 8 men, 6 women. And I have if I was going to close my eyes and imagine a professional jury, which people talk about, you know, instituting that in this country, professional jurors, this is what I would expect. I mean, they cross, you know, the racial, socioeconomic spectrum. They look exactly like a microcosm of Tallahassee. They're all very interested, very attentive, taking notes, paying attention. And this is all of them across every single day, even on the boring days. So I think that they are very locked in. And I think it's personally going to be a bad day for Donna Adelson, either tomorrow or Friday. With Charlie's jury, I was at that trial, and there was like kind of a rogue juror who was making a lot of faces whenever the government would speak, and he was sort of suspect, and he ended up being an alternate. But this jury is locked in. And the last thing I'll say, of course, is the Markells themselves have told me they don't think that don't feel that the cycle of justice will be over until something happens with Wendy. Harvey, by the way, I looked at Harvey, the husband, dead in the eyes, and that guy is probably the scariest of the whole bunch. He's a frightening guy.
Really?
And I think he was helping run the show. But Wendy Adels, that's Harvey, man. That's how he looks all the time. And by the way, that woman right behind him is Georgia Kappelman's beautiful mother on the left side. And she's fantastic. But Wendy has a lot of reason tonight to be worried. There were droplets of new evidence against her. And Georgia was saying her name a lot more than she has in previous trials. And if I'm Wendy Adelson, I keep telling everyone on my show, I am paddling to Havana, Cuba as fast as I can on a rowboat. I looked it up today. It's like an 8-day trip from Miami. And if I'm her, I'm paddling very hard and very fast.
Yeah, if I'm her, my one suggestion is if you're buying your one-way ticket to Vietnam, do it, get on the plane now. Don't wait for the verdict and plus a few days. Like get it done quickly because they're watching.
Now's the time.
Wow. Well, Joel, thank you so much. I want to get you out of here in plenty of time. Everybody who's watching, I'm sure you're already subscribed, but if you're not, go subscribe to Surviving the Survivor right now. They have been doing real remarkable work covering this case. And tomorrow's closing arguments, it's going to be live on your channel and verdict watch from there on.
Yeah, and I'm bummed. I'm going to miss you at CrimeCon. Have an amazing time. Send me some pictures. Send me some text messages, and we'll talk.
All right. Thank you so much, my friend. Take care.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Joel. Your coverage has been amazing. It is true. Thank you, Joel. He's fantastic. Everybody, please, I'm sure you are already subscribed, but go check it out. He's really been one of those people that's my go-to when it comes to this case. Therapists, thank you so much for gifting the memberships. Appreciate you. While we're doing these thank yous, let's take a look at our poll results too. Cody in Tennessee, thank you so much for gifting a membership. Appreciate that. Maria Lebrecht, thank you for the super chat, says thoughts on this coming back on appeal because of this colloquy. So for some reason, I had a brain issue on that word, on this colloquy. Really great question. I think the judge has made a tremendous record. I think he gave them plenty of time. I think he again gave them more time. I think he put on the record how much time he gave them. I don't see this being a problem. Does that mean that they won't try to make it an issue on appeal? It might be appeal issue number one. Of course, every one of these things that you see, they're going to try to appeal on those grounds. But will it be successful? I think not, given the way that the judge handled it today. I think he did a remarkable job of realizing that issue and addressing it and nipping it in the bud. Thank you for that, Maria. Tyler Sky says, Joshua, I heard from a lawyer who said that it might be an issue for appeal that the judge rushed Donna. Oh, same kind of issue. Rushed Donna to make this choice. What do you think? I don't think he did rush her. I think he, as he outlined, you've had all pretrial. You've had the entire trial. We ended early yesterday. You had a lunch break today. I'm giving you 5 minutes, and now I'm giving you another 5 minutes. That's not really rushing in my view. Rushing would be she's standing there. He swears her in when she first said, I don't know. And he goes, sorry, that's not the way it works here. I need a yes or no right now. That would have been a problem. But he's a very patient judge. He's a very smart judge. And he said, okay, fine. You need 5 minutes. I don't know why you need it, but I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to get you back here and you need to answer my questions. Listen, I've been in this position. These conversations don't really need to take that long. You know kind of where you're at. I think the only reason she didn't know is she's trying to postpone the inevitable. I fully believe this is what happens when you have an entitled person trapped in a situation they don't want to be in. And when the option they want doesn't exist, they just refuse to make a choice. And she thought she could do that for as long as she could, even if it would buy her a few more precious minutes of freedom. Though it's not really freedom for her. All right. Ferndale, thank you so much for gifting the membership. Dr. Von de Kay again, thank you so much. Thank you, Joel, so much for all your time you spent covering the Markel case. Your coverage is the best. I'll let him know you said that, but I appreciate you with the super chat. He has done incredible work on this. Abby Exing says, 2 incredible advocates for justice for Dan. Thanks, fellas. Oh, thank you so much for the kind words and for being here and for your generosity. And Flora by the Sea, thank you so much for the super sticker. You guys are fantastic tonight. I appreciate it. 2 Dog Mom just became a member. Welcome aboard. And there's the 2 dogs. Proof she is a 2-dog mom. All right. Do we have poll results, Kaylin? We do have a few more minutes. 49%. That's a resounding victory for Barry Morphew. All right, let's get into it. Barry Morphew. Just for everybody who is not caught up on this shirt, it is caught up on this shirt. Sorry, I looked at a comment really quickly. Somebody was guessing the color of my shirt already. If you're not caught up on this case, here's the quick version of how we have arrived at this point now. Suzanne, pardon me, goes missing. That's her right there. She is married to Barry Morphew. She goes missing on Mother's Day of 2020, May 6th. She texted a friend shortly before that about how, she texted Barry shortly before that about how she figured that this is the end of their marriage and they should just kind of figure this out civilly. She's last seen alive on May 10th in 2020. May 5th, Barry Morphew is first arrested for first-degree murder. March 1st of 2022. So she goes missing in May of 2020. May of 2021, a year later, he's arrested. Body still not located. March of 2022, he's set for trial, and the prosecution actually dismisses the case. They decide not to proceed to go forward. It's still a no-body case. The judge dismisses it in April without prejudice. Without prejudice, meaning they can bring it again if they want to. Not double jeopardy has not attached. He's not been tried. Then we skip forward another year to September of 2023. 3 years after she's gone missing, her remains are found. In April of 2024, it's declared a homicide based upon those remains, and he is again arrested in June of 2025 and indicted for her murder. And that's where things stand right now. And the remarkable thing about all of that, and I really feel something was at play here. Someone was watching over Suzanne and helping her get justice, because their case got abundantly stronger upon the discovery of her remains, because they were able to find in the marrow of her bones this tranquilizer. What is it called again? BAM, I think it was. Am I getting it? Yeah, look at that. I'm not going to pronounce those words. Just not going to do it tonight. It's been a long week. But BAM, which is a tranquilizer that no one in the state of Colorado owned but Barry Morphew, was found in the marrow of her bones, making this case, in my view, much stronger. Before this, talking about a no-body case that's very circumstantial and very difficult. After this, you're talking about a very strong case. So the latest with him is that they've asked for a reduction in his bail. That's him in court, dressed in civilian clothing, but he is in custody. He's in custody on a $3 million bond. What happened is, you may have seen headlines saying changed bail conditions, you know, and it, depending on how the reporter wanted to report it, you could have characterized it either way. It could have been remains under bail, under $3 million bail, or bail conditions changed. Here's what actually took place, though. The judge had originally put in effect a $3 million cash bond, meaning you want out, come up with $3 million cash. That is, even for a wealthy person, incredibly difficult. People with that kind of money usually have it tied up. It's tight. They don't have $3 million in the bank. They've got it in their business and in their home, and you know, they can secure loans and everything else. But actually pulling together $3 million is very difficult for even people with a lot of money. I'm speaking, of course, on behalf of those people, not personally being one of those people myself. But what the defense came back and they said, we want you to reduce this to $500,000, meaning they probably feel like he could get together $500,000. By the way, just so you understand how these work, that is not money that is paid to the court and then they're done. You don't write a check for $3 million as a way to buy yourself out of jail. What you're doing is you're parking it with the court. You're giving them $3 million to hold, to ensure that you will return to court and follow the rules, not commit other acts of violence, not try to escape, not to try to intimidate witnesses. If you fail to do those things, then they keep your money. But it's the idea of there's 3 million reasons why you want to obey the rules is what's at play, because if you do follow the rules and you do come back, then bond can be exonerated and you have the money returned to you. I have had situations with incredibly wealthy clients who are given, say, $1 million bail. They could go to a bail bondsman and pay a fraction of that, 10% of it, but they wouldn't get that money back, that 10%. But if you put up the entire bond, you get it all back. So what the judge did here is allowed for that type of situation where he can post what's called a surety bond rather than a cash only bond. Meaning if he can go to a bail agent now and show that he's got 10 to 15%, which is around $300,000 roughly, either put that up as a fee, meaning that the bond company will then post the remainder of the money, the $3 million to the court, or he can secure the bond through $300,000 worth of property to the bail bondsman. Then the bail bondsman can write the remaining check to the court. It's interesting. You're probably learning more about bonds than you ever wanted to know in your life, but this whole world deals with insurance companies and large amounts of money, and the bail bondsman, they want you paying these bail bonds because you're paying that premium and you're never getting it back. In other words, if he paid 10% on a $3 million bond, that $300,000 is out the door and he's never going to see it again. But he might have to do that if he wants his freedom before trial, and he wants any chance of getting out, and he doesn't have a way of getting together the full $3 million. So hope that makes sense. That's what happened. Is that a victory for the defense? Not all that much. It's kind of a common practice. Is it a win for the prosecution? A little bit. The bond wasn't reduced, but this is kind of typical bond in these types of situations where you've got, you know, murder that's likely for some sort of financial gain, or murder that was, you know, premeditated and everything else. So interesting. All right, where are we at here? I think we got time for one more. Should we get into our second place poll winner here? Caitlin says yes. Caitlin's going to tell me what it is right now. 39% Rex Heuermann. All right, great. Let's get into that. That was another interesting development. This is actually really important to this case. This is the final decision was made on the Fry hearing that they had over the course of several different days, taking place over weeks. They kept on coming back with new witnesses. Very, very highly litigated Fry hearing. Fry has to do with expert testimony and what type of scientific evidence are they allowed to present in court. So again, Rex Heuermann, he is charged with 7 murders. This is the Gilgo Beach serial killer. These are for murders that are believed to have taken place between 1993 and 2011. There they are, the victims: Maureen Brainerd Barnes, Megan Waterman, Melissa Bartholomew, Amber Costello, Sandra Castilla, Jessica Taylor, and Valerie Mack. Now, what's interesting is that it was only for 6 of these victims that we were concerned with this recent hearing. So even had the prosecution lost, spoiler alert, they didn't lose. Had they lost, Melissa Bartholomew, the evidence found in her case didn't have to do with this new scientific evidence that they wanted to present. What they wanted to present here is what's called whole genome sequencing. The DNA that was found in this case was rootless hairs, which are incredibly difficult to analyze for a forensic scientist. Or I should say, used to be. Usually you need some sort of genetic material like blood or saliva or semen or hairs that have the root, meaning they have more of that genetic material attached to them. Rootless hairs present more difficulty. And so what they have to do, I am not a scientist and I'm not going to pretend to be, but I do know that this idea of whole genome sequencing is where they extract that DNA from the hair. They are able to kind of extrapolate a profile from that and then match that to the suspect, which they did in this case for 6 out of the 7 victims there. This has been used in other states. It's used quite frequently here in California. It's even been used in Idaho, but it has never been used in court in New York. And there was the issue, because in New York, because they have a Fry standard, there's a hearing that needs to take place when you're trying to use scientific evidence that has never been used in a criminal court before, even though it is established scientific, established scientific methods used throughout the country. So this is Michael Brown, who is Rex Heuermann's attorney, and they argued this and heavily litigated this. Again, the results were that the judge felt, based on other expert testimony presented during the hearings, peer-reviewed articles, and the use of this technology in other states, including California and Idaho, that it would be allowed to be used here. Now, that wasn't just a small kind of decision made. This is Judge Timothy Mazzei, by the way. That wasn't just a small decision made on the Rex Heuermann case. First of all, it's a profoundly important decision made in the Rex Heuermann case, but it also is going to open up a bunch of other cases in New York. Any other case in New York where they're trying to use this kind of evidence now, this case has set a precedent. They're going to point toward the Heuermann case to say, listen, a judge found in that case that it was accepted within the jurisdiction of New York for the first time, so now we can start using it. So don't be surprised if you see this coming up much more often in New York. It's just, catching up of the criminal justice system is always several decades behind science. And depending on the jurisdiction, how long that gap might be. But it's important in this case because without this evidence, they don't got a case. I'm sorry. I know that they've got other stuff linking him to murders and the planning and the book and the cell phone calls, and there's a tremendous amount of evidence here. But it really, if you want to come down to it, hinges upon that DNA evidence, which is able to link him to these victims. Otherwise, you've got a guy who's kind of running around with sex workers and everything else. And you've got a lot of circumstantial evidence that he's a horrible dude and maybe committed a lot of horrific crimes, but they didn't recover any genetic material from his home. And there are no eyewitnesses to exactly place him with some of these victims. Yes, there's an eyewitness that was part of the breakthrough in this whole case that could describe him as being a person who had met with one of the victims a day before. Again, I'm not saying that they would not have tried to take this case to trial without the DNA, but it would have been a significantly more difficult case to present for the prosecution without this DNA. So it's a big win for the prosecution today or this week. Remind you of another case, by the way, Brian Koberger. That centerpiece piece of evidence there was the DNA. Maybe they had other stuff. Maybe they had other circumstantial evidence they could say pointed towards him, but it's almost like the DNA is center stage and the rest of the evidence just kind of corroborates it. Why could this person not provide some other innocent explanation for their DNA? So it's going to be a fascinating case, and now it can finally be set for trial. No trial date has been set, but I would not be surprised if we have something being set by, late this year, early next year. I don't know. I say that now that the judge has heard me say that, they'll probably set it out for 2 years from now. But I hope that this gets moving along quickly because the people of New York deserve this, and all of those 7 victims deserve this to have to move along more quickly. All right. You guys are fantastic. Deborah Guzman, you're fantastic. Thank you so much for gifting the memberships. Annalie Finch, always good to hear from you. Thank you so much for the super sticker. Johnny Knoxville, my friend, how are you? Thank you for gifting the membership. I didn't see a guess on the shirt color from Johnny. I'm a little hurt by that. Elvis Persley, thank you so much for gifting, for becoming a member. Welcome aboard. I hope you enjoy it. Cody in Tennessee, is Drummond case streamed live tomorrow? I don't know the answer to that. Do we know the answer to that? I'm staring at you, Kaylin. She's going, I don't know. We'll try to find out. We'll try to find out before I say goodbye. Jen H, for becoming a member. Thank you so much. I like your baby Yoda there. All right, guys, let me get to some announcements because we do have a little bit of a different schedule this week because it is CrimeCon. We're leaving tomorrow. We're getting on a plane tomorrow morning. Ask us how stressed out the Ritter household is. Very, very is the answer because we're getting on a plane and we're bringing a 1-year-old baby with us, and it's going to be great. It's going to be absolute chaos, but it's going to be great. First of all, if you would like to know about the membership program yourself, please go to thecourtroomconfidential.com. We would love to have you join our community. You click on become a member on the website, and that's the easiest way to do it. Trying to do it otherwise through YouTube is nearly impossible. So go to thecourtroomconfidential.com. If you want to know about merch, like for instance, the shirt I'm wearing tonight. What is this? Just purple? Just shirt color. I'm your Huckleberry. Love it. Name change. I'm your Huckleberry. Periwinkle, says Jen H. I don't know. Do you know Tiffany? Is Tiffany still around or is she packing? She's probably packing already. If you like this color or if you want to check out some of the other merch that we have, Violet says YouTube bad actors. Please go to the shop at thecourtroomconfidential.com. Oh, it is called Violet. We got a bunch of different shirts. We've got a bunch of different tumblers. For instance, this one, Let's Get Juiced. And we've got brand new shirts that say, what's happening here? So like I said, if you want to walk around your neighborhood and think everyone believes you to be thoroughly confused, now you don't have to, you can remove all doubt by wearing this shirt. Lovely Lavender or Lavender Lullaby. I like those as well. What did you miss? This Monday, we had Julie Janae on from Court TV, and we talked about Donna Adelson. It was a really great conversation. A lot of you enjoyed that. She again has been somebody following this every single day, and she had some really interesting insights. So if you want to catch up on the trial before closing arguments tomorrow, please check that out. So stay tuned this week. Obviously, the big thing is Courtroom Confidential live trials. Our sister channel will be carrying the closing arguments tomorrow, and we'll be on verdict watch. Go to Courtroom Confidential live trials. That's a separate trial. Please subscribe over there. Separate channel. Please subscribe over there so you don't miss anything. Oh, Kathy says she got her Tumblr today. It's amazing. Oh, awesome. I love that. It's really nice. I really like them. I think we did a good job with these. Then Saturday, like I said, we're leaving on a plane tomorrow to go to CrimeCon. Because of that, we're going to do a special live Saturday weekly roundup. Instead of, we just cannot put it together by recording it and editing it and all of that. So same time though, live at 8 p.m. Pacific, 8 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. No, pardon me, 11 Eastern. I did the math wrong. We will be doing our weekly roundup live on this channel, Courtroom Confidential. Sunday, we just couldn't figure it out. So no Sunday fun day. Don't yell at me. Don't be mad. We will have a double the fun Sunday fun day the following Sunday. So please still leave us messages at thecourtroomconfidential.com. CrimeCon, like I said, if you're still looking for a ticket, we got a discount code for you at if you enter the word courtroom, all caps, all one word, at checkout, you'll get 10% off. It's starting this Friday through Sunday in Denver, Colorado. I hope that as many of you can come by and say hi. And here's some of the fun stuff we got going on at CrimeCon. First of all, marvelous, says David. Carrots and other veg, thank you so much for becoming a member. Appreciate that. We got nominated. So we're very excited to go to this CrimeCon in particular because we got nominated for Outstanding Episodic Series in a podcast. We appreciate your support and cheering us on for that. I am, as you know, also a legal contributor with Fox News. Fox Nation will be out there. They have a booth, and we'll be doing a couple of live panels at CrimeCon on Friday and Saturday. And so if you're not able to make it, but you still want to watch the live panels, Fox Nation is going to be streaming all of CrimeCon exclusively. They're going to be having all the speakers, all the panels, including myself speaking on Friday and Saturday. And you can check that out. And I'm doing this just as by way of sharing the information with you, because we're not affiliated with this at all. But if you go to Fox Nation, if you're not already signed up, you can actually get a 7-day free trial. So if you do it now, you could watch all of CrimeCon and check it out. Also for our members, there you go. Afton says Fox Nation has a free trial period. So check that out. Oh, there you go. See, we told you we would get you the answer. Court TV is streaming the Drummond hearing tomorrow. There you go. For our members, I'm going to be doing fun behind the scenes live streams throughout CrimeCon. So we'll be checking in with people who are coming to say hi and different creators and just kind of bringing you along with the journey. And if you are able to make it to CrimeCon, please, please, please come by and say hi to us at our booth. All right. Let me thank some members: Megan Lee, Rona Gaines, Elizabeth Lacey, Karen Riley, Banana Pants, Dipsy Ixit, Jen, I'll Allow It D, Just Imagine, Tara Wells, Catatonic, like that, Catatonic, Jeremy Champlin, Albanian Anissa, I said that right, Mike K, Project Band Shirt, Trisha McGregor, and Chris Hancock. Thank you guys all so much for becoming members. I missed somebody there. Happy to be part of this lovely group, says Twumble, who's been a member for a month. So listen to Twumble. She knows what she's talking about. So happy to be part of this lovely group. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much to Joel for being here tonight, sharing all his insights with us. And the guy's exhausted, but I'm so glad he was able to make it. Oh, please introduce the CCU crew on the members' lives if they're willing to say hi. I don't care if they're willing or not, Alicia K. Mayo. I'm going to make them say hi. I like that. I want to give a special shout out to our mods, Afton and Shy Gal and Kathy and Therapist, thank you so much for helping us run this crazy operation. Kaylin for doing everything behind the scenes and making me look good. And to Tiffany for being the best thing that ever happened to me. Thank you guys so much for being here. We will see you live on Saturday from CrimeCon. Take care, everybody. Have a great night.